Good morning. Thank you for tuning in to Local News Live. This is a service of AOC Community Media in partnership with the Acadiana Advocate. We do this every weekday at 9 a.m., led by volunteers. If you would like to volunteer to read on the program, you can email us at info@aocinc.org. We would absolutely love to have you. We've got a lot to cover this morning, local and state news. We'll do some fun stuff later in the hour, like Today in History and the Zodiac. But first, let's start with local news. LGH merger with Ochsner involves $465 million investment. A 6-story tower to be built at Lafayette campus. An article by Adam Daigle, Acadiana business editor. Lafayette General Health's merger with New Orleans-based Ochsner Health will involve $465 million invested over 10 years in Acadiana, including construction of a 6-story tower and parking garage in Lafayette. Lafayette General and Ochsner officials made the merger official Thursday. It calls for the Lafayette Health System to be known as Ochsner Lafayette General. The merged company is now the largest and most comprehensive healthcare provider in the Gulf South, and the combined system will continue efforts to improve the health of the residents in the region, officials said. The investment includes $94 million at the Lafayette campus. We're one system, one team kind of coming together to deliver better health care in the state and to expand services here in Acadiana, said Warner Thomas, president and CEO of Ochsner Health. We joined together not to just make health care easier to access, but really to improve the health of our state. That's a goal our board set out for Ochsner, to lift up healthcare in our state and to make Louisiana a healthier state in the future. That is one of the main goals that Lafayette General and Ochsner Health will work on in the future. The announcement was the conclusion of a process that began in September, and Lafayette General's board signing a letter of intent to merge with Ochsner. It received approval from the State Attorney General's office September the 4th. All the regional hospitals and clinics within the Lafayette General system will be also rebranded. The most significant investment will be the upgrades to the main campus. It will feature a 6-story tower that will have 48 beds, 23 new mother-baby beds, and 15 new neonatal intensive care unit beds on the bottom 3 levels, with the remaining levels available for future growth. It also includes a 550-space parking garage and 34 outpatient infusion chairs at the Cancer Center of Acadiana, so more cancer patients can get care locally. The addition was an early goal in the strategic planning process, Lafayette General President and CEO David Calcod said. The hospital sends an average of 22 patients a day elsewhere because there is no room to house them. We quickly identified that we really need to invest in additional capacity, he said. It was very important for us to provide that capacity for our patients, so we're really excited about what it's going to mean for patients to be able to receive that care locally. And the nice thing about it is we will have shelf space that will be available for us to expand in the future. Other plans include a Center for Excellence building for the expansion of cancer services and neurosciences, a $1 million investment in the Healthcare Innovation Fund at the Ochsner Lafayette General Foundation for Digital Medicine Technology. Opening a new community health center in an underserved area of Lafayette, and an investment in graduate medical education with 48 new residency positions at Ochsner Lafayette General, to add to the 75 at University Hospital and clinics. The combined system also creates one of the largest educators of physicians in the South, said Lafayette General Chief Medical Officer Dr. Amanda Logue. It will align more strongly with LSU in an effort to lure more physicians to Acadiana. I feel like we have to build a stronger pipeline, not only for our employees, but for those up-and-coming doctors in training, Logue said. We want to harvest the best and have them stay here in Acadiana, and we're going to make a stronger commitment to that. I'm really confident that with all these changes, Acadiana is going to become an even more sought-after place to practice medicine. The merger also includes $21 million to raise the minimum employee pay from $10 to $12 an hour. The increase will be on employees' first checks in October, Calcod said, and will affect about 900 employees. Employees will also be eligible for an annual 2% retirement contribution on top of their current 401k match. We're the largest private employer in the region, Calcott said. This is a significant move for us. For entry-level employees, this is going to represent a tremendous opportunity for us to recruit and also for our existing employees. We're excited about what it's going to mean in the lives of our employees and their families. In other local news this morning, at the council to hear plan for federal relief funds. Guillory wants reimbursement used for raises and police, an article by Claire Taylor. More than $13 million in federal funds Lafayette received as reimbursement for its COVID-19 response may be used to ensure competitive pay for city police and firefighters, for training police on how to handle non-lethal arrests, and to restore raises for municipal employees. Lafayette Consolidated Government has been reimbursed $13.8 million from the federal government's coronavirus relief package for expenses incurred responding to the COVID-19 pandemic. Most of the expenses paid by LCG during the pandemic came from the City General Fund. Lafayette Parish Mayor-President Josh Guillory will propose at a City Council meeting Tuesday the transfer of $10 million of the federal money from the City General Fund to a new Police and Fire Sustainability and Reliability Fund to pay locally and state-mandated cost-of-living pay raises for police and firefighters. He also plans to restore a 2% pay raise to city and parish employees. Competitive pay for the city's first responders is one of LCG's top priorities, Guillory wrote in an email attached to the proposal. A first step earlier this year increased the starting pay for police officers, which will impact the City General Fund for years. The $10 million will improve the city's ability to offer competitive pay for years to come while protecting the general fund, he said. Another $1 million of the federal funds would be used for comprehensive crisis management training for police officers in the wake of the police killing of Trayford Pellerin. Guillory pledged in September to use part of the coronavirus relief funds for de-escalation training after Lafayette police fatally shot Pellerin on August 22nd outside a gas station and convenience store. Police responding to a complaint of a man with a knife allegedly threatening people following Pellerin on foot nearly a half-mile to the convenience store. As he approached the door to the store, the officers fired at least 10 times. In a memo attached to the ordinance, Guillory said it's important for police officers to have the knowledge, tools, and equipment to de-escalate violent situations and alternate non-lethal methods of handling such interactions for the safety of the officers and the community. The fatal shooting is under investigation by Louisiana State Police. Finally, Guillory is proposing the councils restore a 2% pay raise for LCG employees. He left the pay raise out of the 2020-21 budget because of revenue shortfalls due to business closings for the COVID-19 pandemic. Guillory said in the memo he will propose the city and parish councils restore the pay raises at the first meeting of the 2020-21 fiscal year, which begins November 1st. And Higgins won't attend demonstration. Congressman rescinds agreement to meet with black militia leader, an article by Ben Myers. U.S. Representative Clay Higgins on Thursday rescinded his agreement to meet with a black militia leader who is planning an armed demonstration in Lafayette on Saturday. The militia, called the Not Effing Around Coalition, is demonstrating in response to Higgins' violent threats last month against its leader, John J. Fitzgerald Johnson, and other members of the group. Higgins, a Lafayette Republican, called Johnson on Tuesday to make plans to meet. Johnson live-streamed the conciliatory call, and Higgins said in a statement Thursday he thought the call was private. I reached out in the interest of peace and reason. I offered a bridge of man-to-man communication. He burned that bridge, Higgins said. The conflict started with Higgins' September 1st Facebook post in which he shared a picture of Johnson and other militia members and threatened to personally shoot and kill the people in the photo if they came to Louisiana. But the group was focused on responding to the police killing of Breonna Taylor in Louisville, Kentucky, not on the Lafayette police killing of Trayford Pellerin. Johnson has said he was blindsided when he received calls about threats by a sitting congressman in a state he was not active in. Facebook removed Higgins' threatening post, which included a promise to drop any 10 of you where you stand for inciting violence. Also removed was a subsequent post in which Higgins told his supporters he would advise when it's time to mount up. Higgins appeared to be responding to an August 30th video by a Houston-based activist, Jerry Monroe, who, though unaffiliated with the militia, warned Lafayette officials that the group was on its way. Monroe later said he had miscommunicated. The night before Higgins called, Johnson said in a Facebook Live interview that he is demanding a public apology from Higgins. Excuse me. He also said he would not leave Lafayette until that happens. After hanging up with Higgins, Johnson told his viewers that a sitting congressman has had to apologize to Black Power. Higgins admitted on the call that he previously misunderstood the group, and he praised Johnson's poised approach to this very volatile situation. But Higgins did not apologize, and the agreement to meet was not conditioned on any terms that he would do so. Johnson told reporters on Wednesday that he expected Higgins to apologize in their meeting. Higgins said in his statement that he has nothing to apologize for. He said Johnson and media reports misconstrued his intent. Nowhere in that conversation did I apologize, nor do I have any intention to do so, Higgins said. Higgins' statement Thursday did not include any additional threats. He said he respects the group's right to peacefully assemble. Johnson has said his group will not initiate violence and will follow all laws. Lafayette officials on Wednesday praised the group's close coordination with them in advance of the demonstration, which is scheduled for 4 p.m. Saturday at Parc Sans-Souci. Details of the march, including the route and expected crowd size, have not been released. Lafayette Parish Mayor-President Josh Guillory said on Wednesday morning that he would authorize release of the group's permit, but it had not been provided as of 2:15 p.m. Thursday. Sheriff Mark Garber said he is aware of 2 other self-proclaimed militias that are planning to attend. He would not release any additional information about those groups. Garber warned that downtown would be a non-permissive environment for any law-breaking, especially when it comes to carrying guns in areas they are prohibited. All right, it's 9:12. If you'll excuse me for just a moment, I'm just going to grab some water. Okay. In other local news this morning, Bishop holding Blue Mass on Friday. Service aims to show appreciation for law enforcement. This is an article by Ken Stickney. Lafayette Bishop Douglas Deschantel said his celebration of the annual Blue Mass at 12:05 p.m. Friday at St. John the Evangelist Cathedral in Lafayette will come at a time when law enforcement officers in particular are feeling hard-pressed because of protests over police shootings of Black people across the country, including locally. He knows that well, and it will guide his homily to those in attendance. The Blue Mass is held annually in conjunction with National Police Week and expresses appreciation for police, firefighters, and other responders, asking God's blessing for their protection. It dates back to 1934 when it was first celebrated in Washington, D.C. for police and firefighters, and has grown to include other first responders, such as paramedics and ambulance drivers, who typically wear blue uniforms in carrying out their duties. This year, though, police killings of Black people in Minneapolis, Louisville, Kentucky, and even Lafayette have raised tensions between police and the Black community. Protests against police violence aimed at Black victims followed the August 21st shooting death of Trayford Pellerin, a Black man said to suffer from mental health issues. Police said Pellerin, armed with a knife, refused to drop his weapon as he approached a gas station convenience store. Deschantel, president of the Louisiana Interchurch Conference, a 50-year-old statewide ecumenical group whose goal includes witnessing to faith and social justice, said the topic of police shootings has been discussed by conference members. More than half of the organization's membership is Black, he said. He said the group seeks to give guidance in a range of areas that includes peace and justice, prison reform, and the environment. We talk about these things and try to separate the hyperbole and reality. We make calls for change when needed, he said. In this time of danger and tragedy, we want protection for law enforcement and first responders, he said, especially in a climate of suspicions, blame, and anger. He said the Mass will show support and gratitude for those who come to our aid in time of need. He said almost everyone needs police and other first responders. We want them to walk away from Mass knowing that they are supported by the community, that we know they put their lives on the line for our safety, Deschantel said. Christopher DeLay, a faculty member in criminal justice at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette, said the summer of discontent, which has reached into autumn, hurts police morale because good officers feel they are under attack. He cites efforts to defund police departments and media portrayals of street cops as especially harmful. DeLay, a former police officer, said there are about 800,000 officers in the country, most of whom perform their jobs well. He said in some of the highly publicized police shooting cases, police made mistakes, but the actions of a relatively few officers are used to illustrate the skills and attitudes of the majority of officers who are capable and well-intentioned. In part, he said, the fault lies with police departments and governments that don't put out more information at the time of police shootings, including what is shown on police cameras. The majority of police officers really do want to help, he said. The public perception is that the police are the enemy. That stops good policing and substitutes an us versus them mentality. He also said police need additional training to de-escalate potentially deadly incidents or training on how to use progressive steps short of firing a weapon. Once you fire the weapon, he said, you can't call back the bullet. He said efforts like the Blue Mass reminds police officers that there are people who care about their physical, mental, and spiritual well-being, which lifts morale. It's 9:16. Iberia and St. Martin parishes opt to reopen bars. This is an article by Katie Gagliano. Iberia and St. Martin parishes have opted to allow bars to reopen after meeting state-mandated coronavirus thresholds on Wednesday. Parish presidents Larry Richard of Iberia and Chester Cedars of St. Martin issued proclamations Wednesday afternoon after the most recent round of Louisiana Department of Health COVID-19 statistics were updated about noon. Richard declared the opt-in would begin immediately. Parishes must have a percent positivity of 5% or below for 2 consecutive weeks to allow bars to reopen. Percent positivity represents the number of positive coronavirus tests over a period of testing. The statistic is used as a measure for assessing viral spread in the community. St. Martin's positivity rate stayed steady at 3% from September 10th through 16th and September 17th through the 23rd. In Iberia Parish, the positivity rate was 3.30% and 4.1% in those respective time periods, according to the Health Department's coronavirus dashboard. The 2 parishes join Acadia, Lafayette, and St. Landry in opening bars. Vermilion Parish has not met the requirements to open yet. Vermilion's percent positivity rate was 5.4% for September 10th to 16th and 4.5% from September 17th through the 23rd, the dashboard said. Under the opt-in rules, bars can operate at 25% capacity up to 50 patrons from 8 a.m. until 11 p.m. Only tableside service is allowed, and bar and standing service is prohibited. Outdoor capacity is also limited to 50 patrons and tableside service. Tables must be spaced in accordance with social distancing guidelines, and live music is barred. No one under 21 will be allowed in bars, a release from St. Martin outlining state guidance said. Okay, we'll just take a little break here. Reading aloud makes you very thirsty. Just an FYI. try to read the paper a couple of times. All right, let's see. We're going to take a look at the crime blotter this morning. These are the Advocate staff reports. New Iberia man fatally shot early on Thursday. A 24-year-old New Iberia man was killed and others were injured in a Buckeye Street shooting early Thursday. The shooting happened around 2 a.m. in the 800 block of Buckeye Street. New Iberia Police Department officers determined a group was gathered in the area when an unknown assailant or assailants opened fire, striking several people. A statement from New Iberia Police Sergeant Chris Rudd said. One of the victims, 24-year-old Bryson Charles, died from his injuries, the Iberia Parish Coroner's Office confirmed in a statement. The police department could not provide more specifics on the number of people injured in the shooting or the extent of their injuries. Rudd's statement said Crime scene technicians were able to collect potentially instrumental evidence from the scene, but the investigation is ongoing and few other details were released. Anyone with information regarding this case is asked to contact the New Iberia Police Department at 337-369-2306. Also in the crime blotter this morning, Lafayette police search for escaped teen. The Lafayette Police Department is searching for a teenager who escaped from Lafayette Juvenile Detention Center. Police are actively searching for 17-year-old Raheem Isidore, according to a statement from police spokesperson Wayne Griffin. Police say Isidore escaped Wednesday night from the detention center where he was being held for 2 separate counts of attempted second-degree murder. Isidore is described as 5 feet 7 inches tall and weighing approximately 140 pounds. He was last seen wearing an orange shirt and white pants. Anyone with information is urged to contact the Lafayette Police Department or Lafayette Crime Stoppers at 337-232-8477. All right, on a lighter note this morning, here's an article by Megan Wyatt. This is a way for me to spread joy anywhere. Meteorologist includes thoughtful messages on her weather balloons. A hopeful message landed in Jeannie Doucet's Lafayette backyard Monday afternoon as she taught English virtually to her 8th grade students during a thunderstorm. Initially, Doucet glanced out the window and spotted what she thought was a downed electrical wire from the heavy rain. Upon closer examination, she realized it was a forecasting device from the National Weather Service in Lake Charles. The curious box, which arrived by parachute, didn't just have technical information and instructions. It also had a simple, powerful message written in red marker. Stay strong. We will rebuild. Doucet's home didn't suffer damage from Hurricane Laura like so many others in southwestern Louisiana. Still, the message brightened her day. That was the nicest moment, Doucet said. It just kind of had an image of this scientist writing that message, and it was just kind of a pleasant moment. The scientist behind the message is Chanel Stigger, a meteorologist for the National Weather Service in Lake Charles. Stigger is known in the office for writing thoughtful messages on each radiosonde before releasing it into the sky. She's done this nearly every day for the 2 years she's been on the job and has never heard back from anyone who spotted one until a reporter reached out for this story. Most people just write, "This isn't a weapon," or something like that, Stigger said, but I'm kind of a cheery person, and I want to be spreading more joy to everyone else. That's kind of my aim in life, not just at work. I'm the one trying to spread cheer and joy and happiness. This is a way for me to spread joy everywhere. For the meteorologists who work in Lake Charles and across the globe, releasing a weather balloon is a routine task that's as normal as clocking in or making a pot of coffee. The balloons attached to radiosondes go up twice per day from National Weather Service offices across the United States. Hundreds more go up each day at similar organizations in other countries. During the summer months, the balloons go up at 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. every day. The time is bumped an hour earlier to 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. during the winter months. As many as 4 per day go up during inclement weather events, such as hurricanes. Each radiosonde collects and transmits data through radio waves back to the office to help meteorologists forecast weather conditions. The information is transmitted only on the way up. After about 110 minutes of flight, the radiosonde parachutes down from the sky, often landing in rural areas or bodies of water. We've had balloon launches land back at the office, said Roger Erickson, warning coordination meteorologist for the National Weather Service in Lake Charles. Typically, they don't go very far in the summer, but in the wintertime, they can be carried all the way to Mississippi. Stigger usually follows her heart when deciding what to write on a radiosonde on any given day. I hope you have a fantastic Friday. Stay cool. We hope you have a great Thanksgiving, or it's hot, y'all. Be very careful in this heat. I know these aren't always found, Stigger said, but it's nice to know there's a fun message on them in case they are. Since Hurricane Laura devastated the Lake Charles region, Stigger has written hopeful messages meant for victims who are still piecing together their lives. The storm wasn't just something her team covered in a professional capacity. All 24 of the employees who work at the National Weather Service office in Lake Charles were personally affected by Hurricane Laura. Stigger said she had the least amount of damage out of her colleagues, just water damage to the roof of her apartment unit. Some employees had their roofs ripped off by wind or smashed by fallen trees. Her advice to anyone who is struggling to find hope in 2020: don't go too deep into a moment, and if you do, remember that it is just one moment. When I was younger, I was dealing with a lot and was stressed out and depressed, Stigger said. Now I don't let myself go too deep into a moment. I know it only lasts for a moment. I know things will gradually keep getting better. We've got one last local news story here this morning, I believe, and then we're going to go move on to our midway in the program. Death of a child left in car again raising questions. An article by Megan Wyatt. Baby Gavin Golston and toddler Riot Hensley both faced untimely deaths after overheating in vehicles in Lafayette Parish. Gavin, 11 months, died on a June day in 2012 in a hot vehicle parked at a workplace after his father forgot to drop him off at daycare that morning. Riot, 2, was found dead over the weekend in a vehicle parked outside of a residential area. In the first case, Robert Matt Golston faced no criminal charges. Investigators determined the death was a horrible tragedy and not a crime. The man had suffered the loss of his son. It was punishment enough. In the more recent case, Natalie Broussard, Riot's mother, was arrested and charged with negligent homicide. Both cases are under the Lafayette Parish Sheriff's Office jurisdiction. The Sheriff's Office has released little information about either case. The circumstances were different, said Captain John Moell, spokesperson for the Sheriff's Office. We determined there was no criminal intent with the first one. This one, we believe, there was at least negligence. The Sheriff's Office could point to no other cases in at least 10 years within its jurisdiction where an infant or toddler had died from heat stroke in a vehicle. Even if more information were publicly available, it's difficult to say why one parent faces criminal charges while another does not, according to Amber Rollins, director of KidsAndCars.org, a nonprofit that has tracks and analyzes pediatric deaths caused by heat stroke in cars. You could have two different cases with nearly identical circumstances, and in one case the parent is charged with extremely harsh charges, and in the other they're not charged at all, Rollins said, and there really just doesn't seem to be any consistency across the board. Her organization has identified about 500 deaths across the country involving parents and caregivers who said they were not aware they had left their babies in hot cars. No criminal charges were filed in about 41% of those cases. In about 32% of the cases, a parent or caregiver was charged and convicted of a crime. In about 11% of cases, someone was charged with a crime but was not convicted in court. Another 16% of cases were either still open or had an unknown status. Charges also varied widely, ranging from manslaughter and other felonies to misdemeanors such as child endangerment. If any case is truly a case where a parent unknowingly left a child, then criminal charges should absolutely not be filed, Rollins said. The whole point of criminalizing something is to prevent it from happening again in the first place. We think that actually goes in the opposite direction of what you want to do. If someone sees this as a criminal issue, they think it doesn't apply to me. If parents are really honest with themselves, every parent has lost awareness that their child is in the back seat when they're sleep deprived. The difference in most cases is that something triggered them to remember. Although these cases are not terribly common, child safety activists have been trying to raise awareness of how easy it is for a parent or caregiver to forget a child in a vehicle. The part of the brain responsible for performing habitual tasks, such as driving to and from work, suppresses the part of the brain responsible for processing the here and now and changes to routine, such as dropping a child off at daycare, according to David Diamond, a neuroscientist at the University of South Florida who researches the psychology behind these cases. The subconscious memory is much more likely to take over when someone is stressed, fatigued, or sleep deprived, all of which are especially common for parents of young children, Diamond said. Parents lose awareness that their children are in their cars, Diamond said in a prepared statement. Tragically, these parents report that they had pictures of their child on their desks. They talked about their child and even left work on time to pick up their child from daycare. On a hot summer day, a vehicle's temperature can reach 125 degrees within minutes, even with the windows cracked. Children can also die of heat stroke when it's just 60 degrees outside if left in a vehicle for an extended period of time, according to kidsandcars.org. Rollins and others have pushed for laws that require car companies to include safety features, alerting a driver if a child or pet is left unattended in a vehicle. The U.S. House of Representatives approved a bill earlier this year that would require such features. In the meantime, some parents and caregivers have relied on tools such as the eClip, a low-cost device that attaches to a car seat or diaper bag and sends alerts through a smartphone when a user walks more than 25 feet away from the vehicle. It's forgotten baby syndrome. Just like you can forget how you got to work because you're absorbed in other things, you can forget that you have a baby in the car, said Michael Bronald, who developed eClip and other child safety products. That's why in the majority of cases, there's no prosecution. It's very hard to prove negligence. All right, it's 9:30. We're halfway through our program this morning. Before we move on to state news, we're going to take a look at today in history, the zodiac, and first we'll cover the funerals today in the Acadiana area. Glenn Colomb at St. Mary Mother of the Church in Lafayette at 10 a.m. this morning, and Anthony Landry at Saints Peter and Paul Catholic Church, 1110 Old Spanish Trail in Scott at 11 a.m. Okay, just going to grab some water. And today in history, by the Associated Press. Today is Friday, October the 2nd. It's the 276th day of 2020, and there are 90 days left in the year. Today's highlight in history: on October 2nd, 1944, German troops crushed the 2-month-old Warsaw Uprising, during which 250,000 people had been killed. On this date in 1941, during World War II, German armies launched an all-out drive against Moscow. Soviet forces succeeded in holding on to their capital. In 1967, Thurgood Marshall was sworn as an Associate Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court as the court opened its new term. In 1970, one of 2 chartered twin-engine planes flying the Wichita State University football team to Utah crashed into a mountain near Silver Plume, Colorado, killing 31 of the 40 people on board. In 1984, Richard W. Miller became the first FBI agent to be arrested and charged with espionage. Miller was tried 3 times. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison, but was released after 9 years. On this day in 2002, the Washington, D.C. area sniper attacks began, setting off a frantic manhunt lasting 3 weeks. John Allen Muhammad and Lee Boyd Malvo were finally arrested for killing 10 people and wounding 3 others. Muhammad was executed in 2009, and Malvo was sentenced to life in prison. In 2017, rock superstar Tom Petty died at a Los Angeles hospital at the age of 66, a day after suffering cardiac arrest at his home in Malibu, California. In 2018, President Donald Trump ignited a crowd at a campaign rally in Mississippi by mocking Christine Blasey Ford over her claim that she had been sexually assaulted by Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh decades ago. Trump also said it's a very scary time for young men in America who could be considered guilty based on an accusation. 10 years ago today, a coalition of progressive and civil rights groups marched by the thousands on the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., pledging to support Democrats struggling to keep power on Capitol Hill. 5 years ago today, President Barack Obama said he wouldn't sign another temporary government funding bill after the current one expired December the 11th, insisting that congressional Republicans and Democrats work out a long-term budget deal with the White House. 1 year ago, House Democrats threatened to make White House defiance of a congressional request for testimony and documents potential grounds for an article of impeachment. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo acknowledged for the first time that he had been on the phone call in which President Donald Trump pressed Ukraine's president to investigate Democrat Joe Biden. Today's birthdays, singer-songwriter Don McLean is 75 today. Cajun country singer Joel Sonnier turns 74. Rock musician Mike Rutherford of Genesis and Mike and the Mechanics is 70 today. Singer-actor Sting is 69. Actor Lorraine Bracco turns 66 today. Former NFL quarterback Mark Ripon is 58. Rock musician Bud Go of Sublime and Eyes Adrift is 53 today. Folk country singer Jillian Welch turns 53. Rhythm and blues singer Dion Allen is 50 today. Actor talk show host Kelly Ripa is 50. Rock musician Jim Root of Slipknot is 49 today. Singer Tiffany is also 49. Actor Efren Ramirez turns 47 today. Rhythm and blues singer Latosha Scott of Escape is 47 today as well. Let's see. Actor Brianna Brown turns 41. Rock musician Mike Rodden of Hinder turns 38 today. And former tennis player Marion Bartoli turns 36. And that's a look at today in history. We're going to have a look at your zodiac. If you're a Libra, remain calm to avoid getting into a battle with a loved one. Put your energy into something that will bring concrete results. Focus on love, partnerships, and doing what's best. Scorpio, take care of business. Leave nothing unfinished or open to criticism. Consider making a domestic change that will give you greater freedom. If you touch base with friends and relatives, you'll acquire valuable information. Sagittarius, you may want to party, but before you do, consider the consequences. You can have fun without jeopardizing your health or reputation. Capricorn, don't let the little things annoy you. Keep your emotions tucked away. Listen carefully and go about your business. Be practical and use your intelligence to get ahead. Aquarius, a partnership will interest you. Put together a must-have list before you negotiate. You may not get everything you want, but you will get the essentials if you're ready to barter. Pisces, changes to how you handle your money, investments, and important relationships will have major repercussions. Use charm and offer incentives to gain the support you require to reach your goal. Aries, don't get upset, get moving. Channel your energy into something constructive. Avoid letting anyone goad you into a spat that will waste time and cause stress. If you're a Taurus, look at every situation thoroughly before you make a move. Some underhandedness will prevail if you let others take control. Personal improvements will bring you the highest reward. Gemini, get to the bottom of any situation that has left you feeling uncertain. Ask questions, be direct, and don't settle for secondhand information. Benevolence will pay off. Cancer, an unexpected change will occur if you let your anger lead to a battle with a loved one. Take a step back and do your best to understand what others are going through before you take action. Leo, follow your heart. If you give someone an inch, they will take a mile. Put more emphasis on what's important to you and how to go about getting your way. And lastly, Virgo, how you handle your money will determine how much cash you have for entertainment and luxury purchases. Practical spending and investments will be necessary if you want to improve your lifestyle. The horoscope, of course, is an entertainment feature, not based on scientific fact. It's 9:37 this morning. We've gone through our local news. Let's move on to some state stories, shall we? Here's some from the 2020 legislature special session. GOP split over virus restrictions emerges. House panel advances several bills to limit governor's authority. An article by Sam Carlin. Divisions between Louisiana House and Senate Republicans over how much power they want to take over Governor John Bel Edwards' coronavirus restrictions and whether to lift them entirely revealed themselves Thursday as a House panel advanced a crop of bills targeting the rules. The House and Governmental Affairs Committee passed legislation by House Speaker Clay Schexnayder, Senate President Paige Cortez, and others, all aimed at the governor's power to issue rules closing down businesses, requiring masks, and taking other steps to slow the spread of the coronavirus. But it's still not clear what approach Republican lawmakers might take in the special session that must end in late October. Cortez, Republican from Lafayette, whose bill won the support of all senators who voted Wednesday, favors giving lawmakers oversight over Edwards' decisions. It would require the governor to give lawmakers advance notice and information about his executive orders. And it would require both the House and Senate, not just one chamber, to sign off on a petition to cancel the order entirely. I think if you put legislative leadership in front of the governor, he's going to want to talk, Cortez said, before his bill passed out of the committee without objection. But some House Republicans have voiced concerns the bill doesn't go far enough. Some conservatives want to lift all restrictions, while others at least want the ability to approve or reject further or future emergency declarations. I've been bombarded ever since this left the Senate floor that this has no teeth, said State Representative Dodie Horton, Republican of Houghton. Schexnayder, Republican from Gonzales, passed a resolution through the committee Thursday that would lift all restrictions for a month. He called it a tool in the toolbox and has indicated it's a negotiating instrument. Republican committee members approved Representative Mark Wright's House Bill 4, which would allow the top 4 legislative leaders to vote to send ballots to the legislature to decide whether to reject Edwards' orders, and it passed 10-5 and now heads to the House floor. Several other bills by Representatives Barry Ivy, Republican of Central, Larry Freeman, Republican of Abita Springs, Thomas Presley, Republican from Shreveport, and Jerome Zarang, Republican from Houma, also advanced. The debate over Edwards' emergency powers has taken center stage since the special session began on Monday. The session is also aimed at tackling Hurricane Laura relief, the state's nearly bankrupt unemployment fund, and other issues. The government, at a news conference Thursday, didn't commit one way or the other on the legislation, but said if the legislature wants to manage an emergency by committee, he will oppose it. There are not enough House Republicans to override a veto by Edwards without help from others. Edwards also challenged the idea that he hasn't communicated well enough with lawmakers. He said the issue is that many Republican lawmakers don't believe there should be any coronavirus restrictions, and there's not a reasonable discussion to be had with those who think there shouldn't be any restrictions or emergency declarations in place. It is not a good idea to try to manage an emergency by committee, Edwards said. I hope that is not what the legislature is trying to do. The legislature has always had the ability to provide oversight. Jim Wascom, the head of Edwards' Emergency Response Agency, warned lawmakers that lifting the emergency declaration entirely, an idea floated by some conservative lawmakers, would jeopardize federal funding. Why would you take that risk, he asked. Republicans are widely upset with Edwards for his restrictions. Some want to lift restrictions entirely, and they dismiss the need for social distancing and mask requirements. Others are annoyed with what they say is a lack of communication by Edwards months after the public health emergency began. Cortez's bill would require the governor to submit information to the legislature before issuing a new emergency declaration. While Edwards has said he opposes efforts to give the legislature authority over his decisions, all Senate Democrats present Wednesday voted in favor of Cortez's bill, saying they would oppose it if it was amended to go further. The House is slated to take up the emergency powers bill on Friday. A quick public service announcement. Monday is the final day if you want to register in person or by mail. You have until October 13th to register online. So if you're not yet registered to vote, this is very important that you get registered ASAP. You can go to sos.la.gov. You can find out more about how to do that. Emergency Election Planning Bill Moves by Mark Ballard, Capitol Bureau Editor. Voting largely along party lines, the Louisiana Senate approved Thursday evening a bill sold as a way to streamline the bitterly partisan way of setting up elections in an emergency that opponents said would remove the governor's power to veto the plan. Your bill changes the balance of power, State Senator Jay Luno, Democrat of Alexandria, told Republican Senator Sharon Hewitt of Slidell and sponsor of Senate Bill 20. The legislation takes away the power of the governor as well as gives House and Senate committees the ability to unilaterally reject the plan submitted by the Secretary of State during emergencies such as the pandemic and hurricanes. Luno predicted that the new system proposed by Hewitt, if it becomes law, would end up in an expensive court battle over the measure's constitutionality. Hewitt countered that the legislation addresses the often bitter political infighting that delayed Secretary of State Kyle Ardoin from preparing for the November 3rd elections and December the 5th runoff. The plan eventually put in place for the upcoming elections was determined by the U.S. District Judge Shelley Dick of Baton Rouge, who ruled in a federal lawsuit before Ardoin's November-December protocols were adapted. That's the problem. We're all on different pages, Hewitt said, adding that giving the commission authority would avoid those fights. We tried to include everyone we thought was a stakeholder. Under current law, once an emergency is declared, the Secretary of State must come up with a single plan on how to hold an upcoming election. His emergency plan then must be approved by both the House and Governmental Affairs Committee and the Senate and Government Affairs Committee, both chambers of the Louisiana legislature and the governor. A rejection from any of the parties requires Ardoin to draft another plan. Senate Bill 20 would create an emergency election commission to decide. The commission would be chaired by the Secretary of State and consist of 9 other members, including the chairs of the legislative committees overseeing such plans now, the Speaker of the House and Senate President, plus the heads of the party delegations in each chamber and the governor. Under the current makeup, the commission would have 7 Republicans and 3 Democrats, including the governor. The plans would be approved by a majority vote, though the Secretary of State would only vote in a tie. We're not 50-50 in the makeup of the body, but we're giving weight to the other party, Hewitt said. For the state election held over the summer, Ardoin initially issued an emergency plan that allowed wide use of absentee mail ballots. The governor agreed, but Hewitt and the Senate and Governmental Affairs Committee said no, sending Ardoin back to the drawing board. His second plan allowed some, but much less access to mail ballots because of the COVID-19 pandemic. His second plan won approval of all the parties, though Ardoin said he had been warned by fellow Republicans that they would not accept a similar emergency plan for the November 3rd election and December 5th runoff. Ardoin drafted an emergency plan for November-December voting that would not be dead on arrival. He proposed limiting access to absentee ballots to only those allowed under state law and those voters who test positive for COVID-19 between early voting and Election Day. State Senator Ed Price, a Democrat from Gonzales, said Ardoin hadn't spoken to him or other black senators who would have given the Secretary of State a more optimistic outlook of using his July-August procedures for the upcoming presidential election. President Donald Trump has discredited mail-in ballots that are being used to ensure that in-person voting on November 3rd doesn't turn into a super spreader of COVID-19. Trump claims that widespread use of mail ballots will lead to election fraud. Republicans, who hold majorities in both committees and both chambers, approved Ardoin's limited protocols, but Governor John Bel Edwards, the only Democratic executive in the Deep South, rejected Ardoin's plan as disenfranchising voters concerned about catching the highly infectious and often deadly coronavirus mutation. But by that time, Judge Dick already was taking testimony in the federal lawsuit. Dick ruled, adding extra days for early voting and reinstating Ardoin's summer plan for the November-December elections by expanding absentee options to allow registered voters to seek an absentee ballot if they are at a higher risk of severe illness from COVID-19 because of medical conditions, if they're subject to a quarantine order, are advised by a health provider to self-quarantine, are experiencing symptoms of COVID-19 and seeking medical confirmation, or are caring for someone who is isolated because of the disease. Early voting for the November election will begin October the 16th and run through October 27th. The state Senate approved Hewitt's SB 20 on a 22-12 vote. No Democrats voted for the measure. Only Republican Senators Patrick Connick of Marrero and Fred Mills of Parks joined those voting against the measure. The legislation now proceeds to the Louisiana House for consideration. Voting in favor of vetting elections elections plans through a commission. 22, President Cortez and Senators Abraham, Alain, Kathy, Cloud, Fezzi, Foyle, Henry, Henskins, Hewitt, Lambert, McMath, Milligan, R. Mills, Morris, Peacock, Pope, Reese, Talbot, Ward, White, and Womack. Voting against SB 20 were Senators Barrow, Boudreaux, Bowie, Carter, Connick, Fields, Harris, Jackson, Luno, F. Mills, Price, and Smith. Not voting, 5 of those, Senators Bernard, Johns, Mizell, Peterson, and Tarver. BO warns about virus spreading at football stadiums. An article by Andrea Gallo. As Dr. Alex BO exits his post overseeing Louisiana's coronavirus response, he's warning that football games drawing thousands of fans could lead to 3 to 5 deaths per week while the coronavirus continues to spread across the state. Should we be in phase 3? Technically speaking, yes, BO said in recent interviews with The Advocate and the Times-Picayune. Should phase 3 look the way it is right now? Should we have football games with 25,000 people coming together? Probably not. Friday will mark BO's final day as Assistant Secretary for the Office of Public Health at the Louisiana Department of Health. He's leaving the post after 2 years, 8 months of them in round-the-clock coronavirus response mode to turn more attention to his family. As BO is leaving, the Louisiana legislature has convened to consider a host of measures that could affect and in some cases drastically limit Governor John Bel Edwards' executive authority for emergencies like the pandemic. The state Senate has already passed legislation to create a committee to give lawmakers more oversight and advance notice of Edwards' rules, but others are pushing for a second committee that would sign off on renewing any emergency declarations lasting longer than 30 days. And other lawmakers are trying to round up signatures on a petition to repeal the state's public health emergency declaration now in force. BO is warning that lifting coronavirus restrictions would lead to coronavirus infections and deaths that are otherwise avoidable. He has also taken on a couple of Louisiana's sacred cows, college football and Mardi Gras. He said that college football should follow the approach that Major League Baseball and the Saints have taken so far: no fans in the stands. LSU is allowing around 25,000 fans per game in its 100,000 capacity stadium, while the University of Louisiana at Lafayette is allowing around 10,000 fans in its 40,000 capacity stadium. Edwards said at a news conference Thursday that he was unaware of BO's concerns about fans in stadiums. My perspective on this has always been to strike the right balance between the public health imperative on the one hand and opening the economy on the other, Edwards said. But for BO, the decision to attend a football game in person this season makes no sense, particularly when fans have better access to technology than ever before and can watch football games on big screens at home. In the grand scheme of things, it's kind of ridiculous, BO said. If this were a story 100 years from now and I said, listen, people were willing to have 3 to 5 people die for a football game every week because it was that important to them. People were willing to sit next to people with a tremendously infectious disease that kills people because they weren't willing to go a single season without going to a football game. The stakes aren't worth it, in his view. He and other public health officials have also warned that Louisiana hospitals are in a precarious position with flu season starting and the coronavirus still spreading. Hospitals are often at their fullest when respiratory viruses are spreading in the winter, and the combination of flu and coronavirus outbreaks could overwhelm them. All of this, Mardi Gras, football, BO continued, we're saying we're probably not going to have good vaccines and everything under better control until next summer, but bear with us. And people just aren't willing to bear with us. It's 9:53. We just have a couple of minutes left this morning, so one final story, and we're covering high school sports. LHSAA Executive Director under fire in Senate panel, an article by Will Sintel. Senate Education Committee Chairman Cleo Fields on Thursday accused the executive director of the Louisiana High School Athletic Association of operating in an ivory tower after he declined to reveal his salary. You don't even have to tell us how much your salary is because we are just those folks down at the legislature And you were in this big ivory tower, Fields told Eddie Bonan, who leads the LHSAA. The issue surfaced during a meeting of Fields' committee on a measure that would require that 4 members of the legislature be added to the executive committee of the LHSAA, which regulates high school football and other sports. The measure, Senate Bill 11, cleared the committee and next faces action in the full Senate. The legislature is holding a special session of up to 30 days on efforts to curb Governor John Bel Edwards' authority during the coronavirus pandemic, Hurricane Laura recovery, and how to shore up Louisiana's depleted unemployment fund. Bonan told the committee that while he is not opposed to the concept of having state lawmakers on the executive committee, he does not believe a state law is needed to do so. Other lawmakers said if LHSAA officials had invited legislators to join the panel, the legislation would not be needed. Senator Katrina Jackson, a Democrat from Monroe, noted that at some point both Bonan and lawmakers will leave their posts. That is why we do it, Jackson said of the proposed addition. Committee members said they were barraged with phone calls in recent weeks amid questions on whether high school football will be played during the pandemic. Teams are set to kick off an abbreviated season on Thursday night. Senator Stuart Cathy Jr., Republican from Monroe and sponsor of the bill, disputed comments that the LHSAA is a private organization. Cathy said the website of the State Board of Elementary and Secondary Education deferred to the LHSAA on how extracurricular sports would be handled during the pandemic. In no other entity in state government would we do that, he told the panel. I think it is good and necessary legislation. The bill would allow members named by the Senate President and House Speaker to join the LHSAA Executive Committee, as well as the chairman or chairwoman of the Senate and House Education Committees. Fields, a Baton Rouge Democrat, asked the president of Bessie in July to have the panel suspend public school athletic activities during the fall because of the pandemic. The state school board later approved emergency rules for schools ahead of the start of classes, but opted not to take action on high school sports. Senator Kirk Talbot, Republican of River Ridge, said the LHSAA has improved since he entered the legislature 13 years ago and that Bonan is routinely responsive to his calls. As far as your salary is concerned, that is none of my business, Talbot said. You are a private entity. Fields said earlier this year Bonan appeared before a House committee and made comments about the football season that led to widespread confusion. He said Bonan does things when you want and you don't report to anybody, and yet you get the gate receipts. Bonan said he reports to principals, superintendents statewide, and the group's executive committee. Bonan told lawmakers the LHSAA's annual budget is $3.3 million and is financed with corporate assistance and revenue from high school athletic events. He said $1.1 million of that budget is for salaries. It's 9:57. That's all the time we have this morning for Local News Live. This, of course, is a service of AOC Community Media in partnership with the Acadiana Advocate and led by volunteer readers. If you would like to volunteer to be part of the program, we would absolutely love to have you. Just email us at info@aocinc.org. We will see you back here on Monday, I hope, at 9 a.m. Have a wonderful weekend.